And now again, you have 2 minutes per question. I'll let you finish your sentence, but then I'll cut you off. Okay. Okay.
Go.
Let's start with James. Do you support, oh, and this is a two-part question. It will be the same question for everyone before we switch to the next question. James, do you support full funding for Howard County Public Schools? That's the first part. And what specific moves do you propose to address perpetual funding shortfalls for the school system?
Yes, I do fully support funding our great public schools. They are the jewel of this county. If we were to let our schools slip, if it's just as good as surrounding counties and not the great institution that it is, we're going to have second and third and fourth order effects that are going to be devastating to the county, frankly. We're known as a county with a great public education system. We have all the resources to do that. It's just about prioritizing them. How we fund that. So we are going to have, likely, as many as 4 brand new members on the council and a brand new county executive. This is a perfect opportunity for us to look under the hood, assess everything that the county is doing, look at the percentages of funding that various entities get, how our services are delivered, and looking basically at anything and everything to try to raise revenue, from increasing economic output here in the county, from redeveloping areas where that makes sense, increasing speed cameras on main thoroughfares, and increasing fees on development. Frankly, the reason that we are in this fix in the first place is that for several decades we weren't getting the money that we should have from developers as the boom years in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s were going on. That is why we're in this situation in the first place. So I am committed to fully funding our schools. I've said this numerous times before. My vote for the next county executive's budget is whether the schools receive their historic level of funding, period.
Calling on the school is dear to my heart. And I'm in the state now, it's not my campaign talking points, it's in my track record. I testified in front of the county council multiple times, long before I decided to run for anything. I served on the operating budget review committee years ago and advocated against increasing class size. And I also served on many policy committees to advocate the same thing, fully fund the school. And especially in the past few years, we haven't cut teachers, cutting programs and services. I've heard from educators, and heard from the students and the families that how those cuttings harm their education in many different ways. So yes, fully fund the school is the #1 priority I have on my platform. And how to fund the schools, how to find the additional revenue to fund our schools, we are facing increasing physical pressure. And this is a very critical moment that our county is facing. There are a couple of ways I think we need to look into. #1, how to support our local businesses so they can thrive here, and how to encourage innovation in our county using our redevelopment centers like the Gateway plan. I fully support that to attract innovation to our county, to increase our business revenue, and how to increase job growth in our county and offer opportunities for our young people, youth development, workforce development, and those all come together.
Thank you, Dean.
Yes, I believe we should fully fund our schools. I'm very proud to have received the Educators Union endorsement. Unfortunately, with the county council, there is limited power of what we can do in terms of funding. They can only refill what the superintendent has pledged and what the county executive has taken away. But ultimately, this comes down to having relationships. I work in the emergency department, and I know how to have difficult conversations with people. It's very difficult to call a specialist at 3 a.m. saying, hey, sorry, this person's having a heart attack. You need to come in and take care of this patient, do a catheterization, do a procedure. So I know how to have those conversations, those working relationships with people on the county council, with the county executive, with the Board of Education. I also want to add that we have had anemic economic growth in Maryland, and that is the main reason why we have budget shortfalls. We have had well below the national GDP compared to the national GDP. Maryland's had very weak economic growth, and that has led to fiscal pressures on the state level. As people have been following the Maryland General Assembly, we've had hundreds of billions of dollars of budget shortfalls, and this puts pressure on the counties as the state is now pushing things on the counties, such as funding for healthcare and things like that. So I think we need to be centered about growing our economy. The Spending Affordability Advisory Committee actually laid this out, that we need to implement what we all decided as a county in the general plan, Go Code by Design, which I was a part of, and I'm sure many people were involved with community meetings and the like. So I think we need to be a little bit more ambitious than simply redistributing the present. But yes, we should be fully funding our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. All right. This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. As the only current educator on this entire panel, I can definitively tell you every cut that happens to education, I can give you a name of a teacher that has lost their job. And I can give you dozens of students who are impacted seeing their educators leave. So it is not sufficient just to redistribute what we have. We have to look at the economic realities. Now, as an economist and an economics teacher, I am very well skilled at that. And the reality is, with every single cut that we get from the federal government and from the state, that means that we on the local level are responsible for more and more and more of the funding with a smaller and smaller pie. And quite simply put, we need a bigger pie. I believe that we cannot have any option off of the table. We need to come together as a community, whether it means that we need to look at, do we need a special fund like the firefighters have for education? Whether it means, do we need to start looking at redoing developer funds so that we can get more revenue into our county? Nothing can be off the table when it comes to our schools. I can tell you that I have been in this fight since 2017. You can look at my very first testimony. I am no stranger to advocating for more money on both the Howard County level and on the state level. I've screamed to everyone I could scream to that this day was coming, and now it's here. So now we need to look at creative ways to work together. Fortunately, I have been endorsed by the Howard County Educators Association and by several members of our state delegation, demonstrating that I have the type of relationships necessary to push for the funding that we need, both on the state level and also on the local level. I have institutional credibility that will help us to be able to get the funding that we need in order to beat this back so that we can have the world-class education system that we deserve. Thank you,
Jessica.
My entire campaign is focused on improving economic development and affordability in Howard County. As so many people have said, we have to improve our economy, which is why I have specific proposals on my website, goforrente.com/issues, that lays out ways in which I'm actually proposing to improve our economy. We are running to be legislators, and it is important not to just talk about what it is we are focused on, but actually delivering through experience and know-how how it is we're actually going to accomplish those goals. And so I encourage you to take a walk to visit my website and take a look at that. To answer the question directly, yes, we absolutely need to fully fund our schools. Funding has slipped to about 40%. It used to be north of 50%. And as Kevin pointed out, we are facing billion-dollar shortfalls at the state level. We have pressures from the national level, and we have to get more creative, more aggressive about how we grow the pie. And one of those ways in which we can raise revenue is looking at the transfer taxes and degradation taxes for homes being sold for more than $1 million. I think that is a great way in which we can increase a dedicated revenue source for our schools.
Thank you, Lindsay.
I was like, as a teacher, So I actually taught in schools, and nothing beats someone who's actually been in the school for years and been with the students and worked with the system. I've also been the VP of Advocacy for the PTA Council of Howard County, and I am now currently the president of the PTA Council of Howard County. Why? Because I care about our students, I care about our teachers, and I care about our community. I have done the work in testimony, in countless hours, working and galvanizing the community to pay attention, to give their time. We have built out our bench, we've built out our advocates in my position, but not only that, but I've done that on the national and state level. I passed the Advocates Act to ensure that students, when they got screened, like my son, who passed the screenings, would actually be flagged and get resources. I also passed the screening reporting bill, because only 35% of those parents were actually able to follow up and get screened, and I exactly with students. I was just in Annapolis testifying, so we would have more eye doctors who could see patients. Because a student cannot learn without being able to see. I have done the work to make sure that we increase the percentage, which is why we saw an increase of the percentage last year. Because almost 6,000 emails were sent to our elected officials to tell them that we care about education in this community. And that is why I am the best candidate to be able to really work with it, because I was on the OBRC, Operating Budget and Review Committee, and actually dived into the budget. Because that's what we need, is somebody who knows the numbers, who's lived the experience, and has shown the community advocacy that I am. Thank you.
Thank you. And now with what's happened recently on the council in Howard County, we want to know that as a member of the council, how would you see your role in supporting our immigrant community? And we'll start on. Yeah, sure. As a member of the council, how would you see your role in supporting our immigrant community?
I am the only candidate in District 5 who has actually taught and lived in migrant communities. And I think we need to really look at what's going on in Minnesota. I am a candidate who will stand by protecting our constitutional rights and due process. And I will stand by living and supporting a community that lives by kindness and compassion that I have seen every day when I'm out there in these events. Because I believe that we are a community that cares about our community. And so I have stood in places. I've been to Guatemala. My husband keeps telling me to stop buying saris. But I love the people, and I love learning about what makes District 5 beautiful and wonderful. And it is that kind of leadership that I would bring on county council. That we are here to show kindness and compassion and celebration of the diversity that makes up. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Randall?
I'm a member of the immigrant community. My father, I'm a first generation Nigerian American. My father survived and escaped a civil war in Nigeria and immigrated to the United States. So I understand on a personal level what immigrants are up against when they move to a new country. And for me, I am actively engaged in protecting our immigrant communities. When we had that, when we first learned that ICE was operating in Howard County, especially that operation that was happening over in LA Mart, and then when we saw ICE agents moving along Route 1 and in Long Reach neighborhoods, my neighbors and I all got together and started an ICE Watch group. And so I am actively monitoring ICE movements as they're happening inside of District 2. I am also working with my church to organize leaders, faith, houses of faith, and immigrant advocates to make sure that we are providing training and resources to those that need it, that want to be a part of mutual aid projects and protecting our vulnerable communities. And one thing that I think needs to be said is that we absolutely have to be willing to share power with our immigrant communities. It is one thing to provide charity and to provide food, et cetera, but what we need to be doing is working to empower their businesses, their institutions, their churches, their houses of worship, and their learning institutions. This is the way in which we can empower our immigrant community. When they can stand up for themselves, advocate for themselves, and stand shoulder to shoulder with us, it makes them that much more powerful. And that's an important piece of the puzzle, is saying that I am comfortable with sharing power with my immigrant neighbors and making sure that they thrive and succeed, and we can all beat back this disgusting federal effort to target immigrants.
Thank you, Renzo.
Working again. Well, friends, this is an intersection of not just my lived experience, but my volunteer experience in the community. Years ago, Columbia Community Care was threatened by ICE. And when Columbia Community Care was threatened by ICE, we immediately got to work. We galvanized the community, we worked with lawyers, and we made sure that our sites, which protect the dignity of everyone by not asking certain questions, we made sure that those places were safe. And I'm happy to say that we have not lost a single client to ICE since our founding. You guys also know I've been on the front lines working with our immigrant communities to fight for Question A, making this place one of the few sanctuary counties in the country. And so I bring together not just rhetoric, but lived experience going back years of working with our immigrant community, because our immigrant community isn't separate from us. Our immigrant community is us. And if we don't change the way we think about our community, every piece being part of our whole, we will continue to have the politics of division. I believe in the politics of unity. I work with every bit of the community that needs assistance, because if one falls, so do the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Kevin?
So my great-grandfather came over here from China when it was illegal to do so under the Chinese Exclusion Act. He was actually deported multiple times before he finally settled here. So as a descendant of immigrants, immigration is incredibly important. We're a county, nearly 20, I think a little over 20% immigrants. And immigration, unlike what one wing of the party, the Republican Party says, immigration is what makes America great, full stop. I support the Liberty Act, and I submitted testimony. I'm really proud that our county council passed CB 16 and CB 17 to make sure that hate has absolutely no place in Howard County. ICE detention has no place in Howard County. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
So I'm an immigrant myself. I came from China more than 30 years ago with little money and broken English, and see how I stand up here today. This country really gave me a lot, and this community lifted me up, and I appreciate that. That's why I give back to this community, and this is a story of many immigrants. And this is the beauty of our country and our community being so diversified and embrace immigrant communities. And I want to say I testified in support of CB 16 and 17 as well. And I'm glad that our county council unanimously voted to pass this bill. So the ICE detention center will not be in place in our community. And we will, as a council member, will continue to do so. You have my full pledge to support the local community, the immigrant community at the local level. And also, I want to say that we need to hear stories like mine again and again in the community, so we understand the immigrant community better and how to serve this community. And we need a representation on the county council who can tell the stories, who can tell their life stories and share with our broader community. And also the civic education and civic engagement, voters registration education, because as an immigrant myself, I know how hard it is to understand the two-party system, the voting system. It's confusing, I'm telling you. I've learned and learned again, and until recently, I think now, hopefully, I fully understand what the party system is. And this is something that we need to hear from our immigrants.
Thank you, Jane. James.
Thank you. So I remember my great grandmother. She lived well into her 90s, so I got to spend more time with her than normally you would with a great grandparent. She was the last relative of mine to come over from Europe before the war. I married first generation immigrant, and I have 3 mixed race sons here in Howard County. We chose to live here specifically because of the diversity, because of the fact that it was welcoming to immigrants. And for all those reasons, unfortunately now, including the recent passage of the emergency legislation, and years ago the passage of the Liberty Act, we're now in the crosshairs. We've already received some correspondence from the administration. Obviously, they're a little busy with some other things right now, but you know, when you have the attention span of a gnat, we'll see what the next big thing is. But we need to be prepared. We need to have people in place that are ready to fight this. Legally and otherwise, we need to make sure that we're ready for this. I proudly supported the passage of the 2 emergency legislation bills. I was at the rally the night of the council's initial decision-making on it. I applaud their efforts to make that happen. I campaigned when I was president for this club, the Ellicott City and Western Howard Democratic Club, for passage of Question A in support of the Liberty Act. And I think that, you know, part of being prepared is being ready to provide assistance to our residents, our neighbors, our friends who are affected by ICE violence. Unfortunately, you know, there's a candidate in this race, Jean, who can't be trusted on the issue of immigration. She's a well-known supporter, anti-Liberty Act supporter. She claimed at the time, before she became a Democrat, that the only reason it was put up was for Dr. Ball to get name recognition in order to become the county executive. When you get immigration wrong, you get America wrong.
Thank you, James, and thank you for those answers. Now we will go to our next question, and just so I can say, you know, I'm an immigrant, so thank you for the answers. I appreciate that, and thank you very much. So, what specific actions would you take to address the housing affordability crisis in Howard County? And we will start on this end of the table with James.
So, housing affordability, there's an affordability crisis writ large, and then there's a housing affordability crisis. We need to focus on ensuring that we are building lower and middle income housing that's actually affordable. In order to fix our affordability problem, building more $800, $900, $1 million homes is not the solution. So we need to be looking at ways in which we redevelop, ways in which we can use smart zoning where it makes sense. But I think that some of the solutions that have been floated are frankly wrong. Weakening ADFO protections in order to get developers to build faster, especially in District 1 where we have overcrowded elementary and middle schools that are projected to be overcrowded for years and years and years to come, is the wrong answer. We're going to solve one problem and create others. We need to focus on the actual type of housing that will make our county, our state more affordable.
Thank you, James. Jean?
First of all, I want to respond to what James said about my record. I'm in fully support of the Liberty 2020. And I did testify for the bill before that in 2017 because the language and was didn't serve our community very well, and our community was not reached out to before the bill was introduced. So the Liberty 2020 changed the language, and I fully support that. Just want to make the record straight. And for the affordability issue, we are facing affordability crisis in our county. And there are many different ways that we should address this, including fully implement local by design. And this is a zoning issue which under control of the county council. And I fully support to have diverse, housing options for working families, for, young families who want to start a life in Howard County, for seniors who feel they're squeezing out of our state, and also for the, people with a disability. I've heard from, many of the voters, I made over 10,000 door visits in my district. Every corner of my district, some doors I knocked twice. So I know their needs. Affordability certainly is a big issue. And how to create more opportunities for young people want to settle in our county is a big issue that we all want to face in our future. And this is something I will address in my, if I get elected.
Thank you, Jean. Kevin?
So this is one of the main drivers of why I entered politics. Housing is healthcare. I see this every day in the emergency department. People are struggling. We have about 700 or so students in the Howard County Public School System who are homeless. Now, we don't have a homeless visibility issue in Howard County, but we have people who are living on the couches of their friends, family members, people who are living in motels, people who are living in substandard housing. I'm on the steering committee of the Housing Affordability Coalition. I'm just going to put a plug here, March 18th, they're doing a webinar. And actually on the ballot, there's going to be funding for the Housing Opportunities Trust Fund. This is something that other jurisdictions have had in order to supply affordable housing for people of below area median incomes. That's about 60 or 40%. And unfortunately, the market will not supply that. But Comptroller Brooke Learman in our Housing and the Economy report laid out in October how we have an undersupplied housing of about 100,000 in Maryland and about 11,000 in Howard County. In reference for past questioners that everyone sees, they referenced Portable City, the book that I've actually read, and they mentioned three things. You need stability. People need to be able to stay in their homes. That's why I support preventing good cause eviction. I support good cause eviction. Number two, we need subsidy. People of lower income need housing subsidy in order to be able to afford a safe and secure and environmentally sound home. And third thing is we do need supply. Now we need to be growing this in the right places. I am not about to build a skyscraper or anything like that in Old Ellicott City. That is wrong, full stop. But like I mentioned earlier, we all decide in the county, HOCO by design, in the general plan, where we're going to build, and we need to be smart about that. And we do not need to be building greenfield development. But we do need to recognize that there is severe undersupplied housing, and this is putting pressure on immigrant communities, it's putting pressure on the 20-year-old who's living in the basement, it's putting pressure on the teacher who can't afford to start a family.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
That's all right. Thank you very much for that question. As a teacher, 40% of my particular colleagues, every day they get in cars and they drive out of this county in order to live. The housing affordability crisis hits home really hard for me, but it also hits home for our other public servants like our firefighters and our police officers. So one thing that I would specifically do is launch a Homes for Heroes program. The Homes for Heroes program would be designed to provide down payment assistance or rental assistance for our public servants so that they can stay here, live here, work here, and thrive here. I think that we need to go a step further though. I think we need to re-envision our village centers. I think that our village centers are underutilized and can be great opportunities to provide housing assistance. I also believe that we can build upon the movement of our gateway development and other developments that we have here. The reality is we're about 8,000 units behind. And as an economist, it tells me one thing, that we have a demand problem because we are a place where people want to live, which is a great thing to have happen, but we also have a supply issue. And wherever we have a difference between what is demanded and what is supplied, prices are going to continue to skyrocket. But we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can utilize things like transit-oriented development to bring in the kind of residents that will not tax our overburdened schools and infrastructure. We can use the bonds that were just announced by County Executive Ball in order to create a fund so that we can help our lower income folks and also fund our Homes for Heroes program so that we can bring in more residents into this county, but in a way that respects our structure, that respects the things that we need, and can support our schools at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Linda?
I'm excited to talk about affordable housing because I actually have policy for that. If you go to my website, voteforrenze.com/issues, you will see my first time downsizing program. One of the issues that we're facing, especially in District 2, is our seniors are struggling to age in place here in Howard County. They can't afford to stay, and they also can't afford to go. Rising property taxes and CA fees. And then obviously, if you wanted to downsize and stay in the county that you helped build, it might cost you $700,000, $800,000. And so what I am proposing is a plan to offer a $20,000 local property tax credit so long as you downsize into a smaller home and you sell your old home to a first-time home buyer. The average age for a first-time home buyer in Howard County is 40. And so we definitely need to lower that age. We need to give our younger families an opportunity to get to access these coveted single-family homes. And we need to allow our seniors to stay here. They don't want to go to the villages in Florida. They don't want to go to York, Pennsylvania. They want to stay right here. And that program will help do it. It also has all the pay-fors and all that information there. And I also have a plan to create a rent-to-own program for our municipal employees. As has been mentioned, half of our teachers live outside of Howard County. And so what I would like to do is take our fee in lieu program, set aside some of that money, have the county purchase distressed properties, rehab them, and then take our county employees, our teachers, our cops, our firefighters, and allow them to engage in a rent-to-own program so that we can provide a pathway to home ownership. This is the way in which you help the affordability crisis through smart, creative policy that you only get with 18 years of experience.
Yeah.
Pat?
So when I think about this, I think about when I was in my early 20s, had my first child, my husband was going to school, and I was a teacher in California. And I think about the small home we bought and how we had to struggle really budget to afford to live there. We had one car. I was able to walk to work. I was able to walk to drop off my child at the daycare to help mitigate cost. And we did that. It's the same thing that I did to be able to afford to live in District 5. Is I bought a fixer-upper, no heat, no drinkable water, mold, infrastructure, electrical issues. And I spent that time fixing it up. I spent that time starting several small businesses so I can afford to live here. I know what it takes. I have 2 adult children I think about who are in college right now. And is that dream possible for them? So I support ADUs. In fact, I would like to put one in one of my 2 basements because we thought about that as a way to try to afford to live here also. I've talked to so many seniors who talk about the sky. It's not just the cost of living, it's the skyrocketing costs in our utility bills. The fact that they live in homes that are not energy efficient, that they would like to downsize, but is there a place that they can afford that is accessible for maybe their possible handicap needs? So it's those kind of nuanced and thoughtful conversations and lived experiences that I bring to the table when I am elected as county. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, everyone, for those answers. Now we're going to move to our next question, and Kat, we're going to start with you. What do you believe our county government should be doing to address the actions of the Trump administration as they impact our community?
I live in Western Howard County. And Western Howard County, and what I've done in my campaign since June, what I've done for 10 plus years, what I've done in the 20 years that I've lived there, it has been about community. It is about building bridges. It is about making and showing the people who really can be. We can be a community of kindness. We can be a community where we celebrate the diversity. We celebrate the immigrants in the community. We celebrate what makes us a wonderful, kind, and compassionate place to live. And that is what I've done for almost 10 years. And that is what I'll do on a county council level, is I am here to celebrate and to bring that kindness to that, to live in those spaces. But you know what is the real key to leadership? Is leadership that listens. And that is what we need on county council. And that is why I win in District 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Kath. Lindsay?
We can combat the horrors of the Trump administration by becoming more self-reliant, more self-sufficient. And that's why my campaign is focused on improving affordability and economic opportunity. Because if we are reliant on the federal government for our budgets and for our services and so many in our programming, we are at the mercy of the Trump administration that does not share our values here in Howard County. We need to make sure that people can afford daycare. I saw on Howard County Mom Hub, a woman delivered twins and she got quotes for $50,000 a year for childcare. I have a plan to cut childcare costs by 65%. There's a program out in Michigan called the Michigan Tri-Share Program that I want to bring here to Howard County. People need houses that they can afford. So when they get laid off by Elon Musk and Doge, they can hold out until they find new employment. That's why I have a plan to create jobs here in Howard County by attracting defense intelligence agencies and federal contractors by increasing the amount of SCIF spaces, secure facilities, here in Howard County. These are the policies that we have to pursue because we cannot sit at the knee of Donald Trump and wait for his benevolence and bend to his proclivities. If we have the money, if we have the resources, if we have the wherewithal, we can withstand and outlast this disgusting administration. And what we have to do that is empower ourselves, come together as a community, create jobs, take care of each other, engage in mutual aid, and not be afraid to stand together when the moment is upon us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Jessica?
Thank you very much. You know, one of the things that I have done is work with Columbia Community Care. And as Columbia Community Care has started, we have been the model for mutual aid here in Howard County. We have literally taken care of each other through the first Trump administration, and we're currently taking care of each other. But I do want to pivot for a second and talk a little bit about making sure that the policies and the plans that we are bringing in are financially feasible. It's really great to have policies, but when the policies cost us money, when they are highly speculative, and when they are dependent on the same Trump administration that's shown us that they have absolutely no interest in working with Howard County, then you know that those policies are doomed to fail from their inception. Now, my opponent has put out a policy for a SCIF, and the SCIF sounds like it would bring in a lot of people to come and work, but it's dependent on the federal government working with Howard County. And as you know from our eyesight, we know who doesn't mess with us, and that would be Donald Trump and the Trump administration. That would cost us over $100 million in speculation. Bringing in policies from other states that have failed in other states is another way to bring speculative policy to our Howard County home and take money that we don't have and put it into policies that we can't afford. We cannot afford to waste time on policies that will not work. But fortunately, the policies that I have espoused will work. I have the institutional connections. I have the wherewithal in order to make them work. And I will get things done for Howard County. My track record of over 11 years have proven that when I put my foot to things, I get it done for you. And I will continue to do that in District 2. So, absolutely, that's how we beat back the Trump administration, by making sure that what we propose will actually work.
Okay.
So I know there's been a lot of contention on the county council over the past few years, and I promise to be a bridge between that. But I think one thing that I really want to applaud the county council and the county executive has been uniting against Trump with CB 16 and CB 17 and the Liberty Act. So I promise to continue doing that, fighting back against the Trump administration. Something I mentioned earlier in my opening speech is that we're losing tens of thousands of working Marylanders every year. And if people are leaving your jurisdiction, leaving the state, leaving the county, you cannot protect them. It doesn't matter if you have a sanctuary act. You cannot protect them if they're not in our county. So I want to think it's really important that we make sure that we're a welcoming and inclusive county and we're an affordable county so people can actually live here and they're not fleeing to other states because of affordability problems. Something else too is that at the end of Brooke Lehman's presentation with PATH, People Acting Together in Power, she brought up this really bad statistic. It's that if we continue to lose population, that means we lose electoral power. That means we lose an electoral vote. Okay? People are power. And if people are fleeing, then we don't have the political power to actually fight back. The more people you have, the more power you have. I also do want to echo that creating a more resilient and growing economy is extremely important as well. We cannot be reliant on the federal government as we have been. I know a large percentage of our workforce is. I applaud what Calvin Ball has done in terms of making sure that there's job fairs for people who are laid off by the federal government. But we have a strong, growing, resilient economy. We'll be able to better resist the Trump administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Dave?
So the policies of the Trump administration and the narratives our leaders are speaking in public really hurts me at a personal level. I give you a couple of examples as an immigrant. I have a long school who are all immigrants, and we discuss what we are going to do if ICE stop us at traffic, and whether we need to bring passport card with us all the time. And I went to a presentation by Rich Gibson about how to protect our immigrant families during this political dynamics. And he actually advised us to bring passport card all the time with us because how we look. This is insane. I've been in America for more than 30 years. This is the first time I ever thought of to have a passport card with me all the time. This is living in fear. The experience I'm having now is the direct result of the narrative of our country's leaders. And during the pandemic, during Trump's first administration, because his narrative about Kung flu and Chinese virus, many of my friends experienced Asian hate and their kids got bullied at school. So this is not acceptable. Words matters and policy matters. And this is something I'm going to fight very hard with my community against Trump administration and support our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
So real quick before we talk about what we can do, let's recognize the people, especially a lot of folks in this room who've been stepping up for the past decade that we've lived in Trump. Who here volunteered for Hillary Clinton? Who here attended the Women's March? Who here attempted, campaigned in 18 when we turned a bunch of seats blue here locally? And on and on and on. That work right there has put us in this position today that we can fight back. The legislation that the county passed, the emergency legislation, that's great. What we need to do is ensure that we're not making other openings for the federal government to come in and mess with us, hurt our residents, otherwise get in our business. So we need a review, and when I'm on the council, I'm going to push for an immediate review of all services, all departments to see where there might be openings to ensure that the administration does not come through like that. I think that an important piece, and looking at time, this is probably the last thing I'll get to say, but if you're gonna represent District 1 with the history of historic flooding in Old Ellicott City, it's absolutely essential that you are going to be protecting Old Ellicott City and going to be focused on the need for local control of land use. Not state control, but local control so that we can ensure that flood mitigation, that skyscrapers aren't built up on OEC, but also more importantly, that there aren't, $12 million homes getting put right above where we're building this brand new tunnel. The Safe and Sound program is great. It's absolutely essential that we do it, but we're going to run out of engineering solutions if we keep tearing down forests and thinking that we can play with nature like that. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Now, we have one last question, and then we'll start with James. If you had been on the council in November of 2023, how would you handle the auditor's investigation into the library?
Well, I'm not sure I'm specifically familiar with exactly what this is, but this is what I'll say. We now have a brand new Inspector General coming to Howard County. This is an essential piece of good governance, of transparency, and ensuring that our government works for us and us alone. I recently met with the HOCO Library Workers United Union, had a great conversation with them while they were in the middle of their contract negotiations. They had, in their contract, they had pay raises. The administration at the library wasn't making those happen. So they had to go, hire lawyers, fight this all out. And unfortunately, right when they thought they had a deal, the library system decided to fire 55 shelters. Instead of, that's bad enough. But then, in the press release or the Baltimore Banner article, the spokesperson for the library system said, "Oh, these aren't employees." To get rid of workers in that way, to treat people as they're not worth anything, simply because they don't get benefits, is ridiculous. I'm going to be a pro-union, a champion of labor when I'm on the council, and that kind of stuff's not going to fly. So I was happy to join the union the night of the library fundraiser and call out this injustice. Thankfully, those 55 employees have been reinstated.
Thank you, James. James?
So I chair the ethics commission, as I mentioned before. So the ethics law is something dear to my heart. And I think the transparency and accountability is very important to make sure our county government runs well and wins the trust of our community. As the chair of the ethics commission, I was involved in the formation of IG Inspector General, and I was have conversations with our county council to support this position. And regarding the library issue, we have some leadership issues with the library, and I talked to the Union FSB local branch as well, and they are newly formed and start to negotiate their contract 2 years ago, and this process is longer than usual. And they finally had a deal, but then the library leadership didn't want to honor that. So that generated another round of negotiation, and this is where we end up with now. And I fully support the union as well. I think that's something we need to work on. And I rallied back in the summer with the HCC faculty union as well, and same problem. And I see the same pattern happens again and again in our county. And this is something that we need to address as a whole, if I get elected on county council. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
So that was a very unfortunate episode that you're referring to, and if I was on the county council, I would stand with the African American Community Roundtable, call out racism when I see it. also proud to be there in support of the Divine Nine, with the renovation of the new center in the Normandy area right here in District 1. And, I think unfortunately we need to be supporting our diverse community, in words as well as in actions. And again, like I said before, hate has no place in Howard County, and I fully stand against racism. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Jessica?
Thank you. For those of you guys who don't know, the issue in 2023 had nothing to do with library workers. The auditor for the county council actually racially profiled the Alpha Kappa Alpha president and also African American women using language that was very much akin to something that you would find in a 1940s episode of National Geographic. Now, I am the only person here who stood in front of the county council and testified, putting myself on the line, ending up in the Baltimore Sun for some of the things that I said. And if I were on the county council, we wouldn't have had to have vote after vote after vote, because I would have voted to get rid of the county auditor along with Christiana Rigby and Opal Jones. In this county, hate has no home in this county, and we should have done the right thing. And for us to have had division amongst Democrats and getting rid of racists is a thing that lets us know exactly who people are that are currently running and who people are who are currently on the council. And I firmly believe in the words of Oprah. When people show you who they are, you believe them. You believe them the first time. You don't need a second, third, and fourth time. So absolutely, I would have been a voice on the council to support African American women, just like I was a voice before the council supporting African American women. Hate should have no home. None of the isms should be supported. And unequivocally, the fact that it took so long shows us that we still have work to do here in Howard County. Don't think that just because we up here look different, we all come from different spaces. All of our audience is from different spaces. It doesn't mean that the hard work of making sure that Howard County is inclusive and that we celebrate diversity, don't think that it is over, and don't think that we've won the race.
Thank you, Jessica.
First thing I want to address is my opponent talked about the feasibility of my policies, which are written and on my website, forwardsa.com/issues, where I talk about the paid fors and successes of the programs. And I also want to highlight the fact that when I was working on Capitol Hill to get Obamacare passed, it was Republicans that said it couldn't be done and it was too expensive. We see how that has turned out. Now, as far as what's happening with the library, I remember it vividly because I am the only person standing on this panel that is a member of the Divine Nine. As I mentioned in my opening, I am the chair of the Kappa League of Columbia, Maryland alumni, Kappa Alpha Psi. You know, my brothers here in the room, thank you for your support. And so I remember how ridiculous it was when the auditor was staking out the AKAs as they were trying to go and have a meeting in the library. It was our chapter that stood in solidarity with the rest of the Divine Nine in response to that ridiculous episode. It was my chapter and me that was advocating for passage of the D9 House and getting the Rockland Art, the High Ridge Rockland Art Center converted to the D9 House. People didn't understand the value of what we as the Divine Nine bring to Howard County. And so I am proud of all of the work that has been done, not only from Governor Wes Moore and Alpha and County Executive Calvin Ball and Alpha, 2nd District Councilman Opal Jones and Alpha. I understand what the Divine Nine brings, what we contribute, and I am proud to be a member that is actively encouraging and pouring into our youth and adding to the vibrancy of our community. And District 2 is the blackest and brownest of all the districts. And so it is critically important that we support these communities. And I am proud to be a part of that each and every day in my church and in my fraternity. Thank you.
Kat?
Last month was Black History. And I went and did a tour at the Harriet Tubman School with the alumni of that school. And I heard the stories of people who grew up and their sisters and their brothers and their families. And as I was walking around, I saw a picture of a building that I had passed for almost 20 years, right next to the Glenwood Library. It was a cabin that was given to 3 slaves. They built that cabin just down the road from me. And I told my kids about it, and I posted it about on Facebook and Instagram, because I wanted my community to be aware of the history that exists in Haddon County. And that hate has no place. And that we should stand up to it when it exists. And the only way we can truly stand up to it is that we know our history, and we live in those spaces, and we listen to those stories, and we listen to those complaints. I advocated for the Inspector General because I do believe in transparency. I believe in accountability. That's what I did. That's what I've done for 10+ years. It is about accountability. And so as a county council person, I believe, first of all, we should stand and speak. And we should recognize where our history is. And that we, as a community, should move forward, because that's really what it is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat, and thank you everyone for coming today, and again for running. It's very brave of you. We need you in our county, so thank you very much.